Strong and Ryan Nohea Garcia on Startup Schools Conference #2. We are discussing Ryan and how he's going to personalize his education for his delightful daughter, Alana.
Indeed.
What's up this week, Ryan?
Well, since we last spoke, we had a busy week. Marlo was off most of the week, so she had Alana during the daytime. I was quite busy. Towards the latter part of the week, I took Alana to her preschool. She goes to preschool on Wednesday and Fridays for half day. It's a Spanish immersion program. I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed by her progress there.
In Spanish.
Thursday night, we were playing board games, and she was able to play basically the whole board game in Spanish. Played Candyland and Cherry Ho.
Wow.
And they're fairly simple games, of course, but she can't read yet. But I asked her to read me the game's instructions, and so she grabs the piece of paper, and she just ad-libs, and it's really cute. She spent about 5 minutes explaining how the game works.
Right.
Take cuadrados, verdes, and this and that, but her Spanish is really quite good. I got to say, just those 6 hours a week in that program have given her confidence to speak more. So I feel like that's really paid off, and it's definitely worth whatever we're spending on it.
Do you or your wife speak Spanish?
No, my wife and I speak a small amount of Spanish. I speak enough to travel through Latin America as a casual tourist. But unfortunately, Michael, I'm the only attorney in San Diego with a Spanish surname who doesn't speak Spanish and therefore doesn't have an immigration practice. Among other perks I lose out on. And it's my fault, right? Duolingo is at my fingertips.
Right.
I just didn't prioritize it when I first moved here because I assumed I would be going back to Hawaii. And here we are. So
pretty soon you'll have to start the Duolingo to keep up with Alana.
Indeed. I'm just hoping she becomes fluent so that she can tell me what's on the secret menu at taco trucks and make sure that I don't get bullshitted.
There you go. Well, last week we talked a little bit about the incredible opportunity that Balboa Park presents, but maybe before kind of going to the whole Balboa Park thing, give me an overview of how you and your wife are thinking about Alana's education from where she is right now. I mean, the Spanish preschool is cool, Balboa Park is cool. How are you guys conceptualizing what she's doing as a whole right now?
Well, she just turned 3, so we feel that anything we do right now is a bonus, whereas a lot of parents and children just aren't doing much. Either they're in daycare or I feel like definitely Alana gets more interaction and she gets more exposure to people, to places, to ideas, and to information than most children. So I feel like right now what she's doing is good. Weekly trips to the science, to the children's science center, to the park. We take her throughout the park. We play music, we play board games, we read to her. She does artwork. She keeps up with us. She hangs out. She hangs out a lot with my friends, who are of course all my age and beyond, older. So I feel like she gets pretty good peer examples in her life, even if her peers are my age or much older. Like one of my best friends and one of her favorite uncles is a 68-year-old vet who's a good friend of mine, and she hangs out with Gene a lot. So I feel like that's okay. But moving forward, we have the option of, we'd want to do something like a Montessori if she went to a school per se, and if not Montessori or something like that, certainly we'd want to keep doing what we're doing, which is to develop a personalized program for her. So Balboa Park offers.
Just the fact that you're taking to Balboa Park, clearly you're kind of stimulating her in a big way. The fact that you and your wife play games with her in Spanish when she's just learning Spanish, a lot of the way I think of it is you want her to be immersed in this rich, interesting environment. Also, the fact that it's great you point out she's listening to you and your wife talk to all these adults, and just knowing you, I know that you're kind of talking about ideas for people that don't know what that means. At some point, we'll go into that a little bit. So, I'm trying to get inside. It's fun to sort of imagine the world from Alana's perspective. So you've got this, sometimes we're just overwhelmed with a cuteness factor, but I'm sure you're observing that there's this incredible, mind figuring the world out all the time.
Yeah.
And I assume that I assume she asks questions all the time and you engage her when she asks questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Alana asks questions, and as we walk or we skate or we sit, or we look at things, I try and discuss concepts with her, not just answer simple questions. I always like I believe that children are more capable, more competent, stronger, and more intelligent than at least I was raised to give them credit for, or I think people typically give kids credit for. So I just throw everything at her and let it all soak in, and whatever whatever sticks sticks.
Yeah,
But certainly, something at park. So the park has who knows how many fountains, right?
right.
Most fountains feature fish or little people, what have you, with water coming out of their mouth. And
Yeah,
so I said, Alana, where's the water coming from? She says, oh, from La Boca. And and then the other day we saw a fountain. I said, where's the water coming from? And I figured it was coming from the mouth of these fish. And she
right.
says, from their lengua. And I said, well, I think it's from their mouth. And I looked at it. And actually, in contrast to the rest of the fountains, there was a little rectangle um, spout in the mouth where the water was actually coming out of. So it did look like the tongue had been cut off and the water was coming out of it. She just doesn't miss anything.
Yeah.
She's, I mean, that's a small example. And I feel of all the examples I could use is probably the worst, but
No, it's a
she's
fantastic
thinking.
example. One of the things that I want to do is I want to help people understand how to help their daughter or son become really happy, brilliant, and amazing without stress. That's one of my goals. And you're such a natural. You're doing this. Feel as if so many people are kind of two directions. I think people mess up on, and I think then we can talk about the sweet spot where you're coming from. Sometimes people just shut their kids down. The kid asks a question, they are ignored, the parent's too busy, whatever, and that's horrible. On the other end, some people are like, "Oh, we gotta do school. We gotta be teaching them, all this anxiety about teach, 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 learn, learn, learn." But in my experience, the most important learning is just completely natural, spontaneous conversation. And the examples you use are great. And the way I talk about it is, with when I had my children, I have two grown children. I'd want to know what's going on in their heads. And so it sounds like, when you ask her, where's the water coming from? First, it's a great question. Sometimes later we'll talk about Socratic, but Socratic is kind of this heavy word for some people. So yeah, you're looking around the world. I always wondered when my kids were that age, it's so mysterious. What does the world look like from their perspective? And
Right.
how are they making sense of it? And so, yeah, then you have the, acuity to notice that, and it's funny she uses Spanish, boca and lengua, that
Yeah.
she really examining the world, and it's that it validates. There are a whole bunch of things it does. It gets her to become aware of what she's seen and thinking. There's a fancy metacog thinking, but all of that fancy word is really people like you just asking your daughter what's going on in the world, and she has to stop. Oh, well, it's coming from their mouth or from their tongue. And
Right.
did she see you examine the tongue one to see them, or did you?
No, we were just walking by. Um, I mean, I'm not even sure why I asked her.
Oh,
It's
it might
just
be cool.
I ask her that at all the fountains. I ask her to point out where the water is coming from, just to distinguish the body parts or to, keep her on, make sure she's thinking or taking notice.
You
Um,
you know better. In some ways, I think it'd be cool to ask her, to explain to her that you were confused about the one that was lingua until you looked at it. And so then she's hearing about how you, an adult, need to figure out the world and how you figure out the world. A lot of what I do is kind of self-talk about how I'm figuring things out when I'm working with kids, because it's funny, we have a very sophisticated tool set. This one's not so sophisticated, but we do for figuring the world out. And yet adults never exposed this to kids. And so I think, if Alana saw her dad, oh, he needs to look and see if it's the tongue and not the, without doubting her at all, but just, oh, I'm checking things out.
yeah,
And also then look, why is it different? A very similar way to kind of get kids to kind of think more abstract is different. Sesame Street has one of these is not like the other kind of thing, but
right,
then kids just make a decision, same or different. I like to get into what things are similar and what things are different and why, and get them to think and talk about it. And this is actually a great kind of example of, I would say, high-level cognitive inquiry that a 3-year-old can get. The fact that she notices that difference is interesting. And then, if you ask her to think about it, she might have not have much, but she might. You're by asking and paying attention. Again, my first wife said, "Attention is love." Every
Right.
interaction, whatever you pay attention to, is a form of love, and kids respond to love. They're love sponges.
Yeah.
Never enough attention. Never,
That's
never. And so, but when you start paying attention to how she's figuring the world out, that naturally draws out the part of her that is, paying attention to things. And when you keep doing that, she's going to make more distinctions. She'll talk to you more about distinctions. She'll talk to you more about how she is making comparisons. I even picture the neurons in her brain kind of growing in a direction based on the love you're showing her. My ideal as a parent, as an educator, is, we've got this incredible learning sponge. How do we create the optimal environment for optimizing, the growth? And especially with somebody like Alana, one of the young people in general, the most important thing is the human interactions. So how can we, and we'll never be perfect parents or educators, but how can we provide a perfect environment in terms of always validating those things which we want validated? And then likewise, conversely, ignoring things that you don't want to encourage. Just for instance, if a child was kind of saying something mean or silly that may not be a big deal, but I don't want a lot more of that. I don't want that part to grow. Then I might ignore that. And then as soon as they say something like this, like, wow, why, and so forth. And I'm very kind of deliberate in terms of, let's not make that part grow. Let's definitely make that part grow.
right.
Like pruning and so forth. You're kind of helping all the brain cells grow. So that was a long riff, but it's just a great example.
Yeah. Well, next week I'll definitely try and have a better example because as I sit here listening to you, I'm thinking of all the really intelligent things she said over the last week, and I harped on the fish tongue. So I'll definitely get a better one.
And
But
then you're already observant, and it is kind of helping you observe what you're doing. That's probably really effective. And then occasionally, as you learn to kind of observe all of these micro incidents, occasionally you also see, I wish somebody else hadn't given her attention for that, because
right.
everything starts small, but it's becoming a really great observer of what's being grown and what's not being cultivated in her personality, in her attention, in her mind, everywhere. And I trust that you and your wife are doing a great job. But it's fascinating. You can become kind of sort of a geek about every interaction like that.
No, no, for sure. One of the things that I learned from you a while ago, back when Alana was so young that it didn't really impress upon me at the time, but now I certainly rely on it, is that, you know, you have to give them attention. That is love. But helping them learn is a real thoughtful process. You have to be mentally engaged with them throughout the day. If we're just walking through the zoo, like we don't just put her in the stroller and, close the lid, so to speak, and expect her to learn on her own or entertain herself or eat goldfish for 45 minutes. And
Yeah,
we see the parents do that. And we, we try and be thoughtful about it. We try and hold her, carry her, walk with her, let her ask questions, listen to her ramble, ask her questions. You see the koala, it's right there it's not moving. So we feel like that's been really good. It
yeah,
just takes time, I have less time on the phone or I have less time doing other things that I might do. So being really thoughtful about it is something that we try and prioritize. We're of the mind that what we do between 0 and 6 years old is just as important, if not more so, than anything afterwards. So it really doesn't cost us anything to help her learn to think or to conceptualize or to notice things or to support that. It just takes time. So
yeah.
we really try and do that, and at times we fail, and we'll catch each other being short with her or not being responsive to a question or an inquiry, or we try and not do that. But that is something that we focus on, even though we certainly are not perfect in it.
Well, and so as not to beat yourself too up, there's also time for kids to learn to, play on their own or engage themselves. So I do think, and it's that tricky balance. Because going the other direction, I've seen kids that become bratty because the parents instantly care for every need at every second. And then when that kid gets to be 9, 10, or 11, expects every one of their friends to instantly respond to them. The other kids are like, shut up, you jerk.
Right.
So it's tricky. I mean, I think you're doing a brilliant job of cultivating the mind, but I think sometimes it's legitimate to say, now you're on your own, and it's always a judgment call. So I want to kind of encourage kind of both things. And some of this is when it's one thing when if you're going through a really interesting place, it's really great to draw her out and get her mind engaged. On the other hand, sometimes if she's at home playing and she could play a little bit longer on her own, I'm sure you've seen situations where she wants attention, you're busy, you don't give her attention, and she keeps playing and she's totally fine.
Yeah, no,
On her
definitely. I mean, we want her to be able to play on her own. We are not helicopter parents. Like, I hover, but I don't help her. I mean, if she wants an orange, I just throw her an orange and make her figure out how to peel it. Kind of a thing. If she needs help, I'll start it for her. Again, another lousy example, but one that pops to mind.
Oh, it's real. These are real. That's what's great.
Yeah. And it's like, I want an orange. Here, help me. I started. And, like, we do that. We don't want her to be, we want her to be self-sufficient, right? Like I said before, I hope by the time she's 16 or 17, she's competent enough to be able to travel, to work, to start businesses, small businesses. I mean,
Yep.
whatever. But being self-sufficient is important,
Yeah.
And we value that. She gets along well with children, especially older children.
Yep.
She does really well with 4, 5, 6-year-olds. She just turned 3, but she likes that. She craves friendship, interaction. Like, I spent my whole life trying to get out of school, right? She loves school, just can't wait to go. Yeah. And her favorite part are the friends, as she calls them. She just can't wait to stand in line and hold their hand and be told what to do by the teacher.
That's so cool. So cool.
Oh, man.
You're just in such a delightful phase. Well, I just want one other little riff, and then we'll let you go to Balboa Park. But one of the things for me is again, I care about social mobility, and I think the most important thing, it costs nothing. It does cost time, but it costs zero money to interact with your kids in this way.
Yeah.
So if we could communicate to more people, yeah, instead of just talking on the cell phone while you're walking your kids through the park, talk to your kids, ask what's going on in their head. If more people knew how valuable this was, then people of all socioeconomic classes could help their children become amazing. So just wanted to point out that what you're doing, while it does take time and attention, I think everybody does it, and there are plenty of poor families around the world in the poorest villages on earth where sometimes they give their kids plenty of attention,
right,
and talk. So tell us briefly about your plans for Balboa Park, and then we'll let you go for today.
Well, sure. This weekend they had an event called the Maker Faire, FAIRE, Maker Faire. It celebrates all the different ways that people create, innovate, build stuff. So it's a pretty big event. It's all over the park. It's sponsored by Qualcomm. So Qualcomm has a small army of their workers who are volunteering at this event. And all of their other workers are showing up to support the event. So there's hordes of people that I've never seen at the park before who are from India and Pakistan and what have you. And I just never see them usually, and they're all at Qualcomm. And so it's a great environment. There's tons of kids, tons of people. There's like 13 or 14 event locations throughout this large park. We saw about half of it yesterday. We went into a presentation by a Qualcomm scientist in the domed IMAX theater about a do-it-yourself telescope kit that you can build for $5,000, and eventually they hope to be $500. And then you can basically participate through that in a smartphone in researching asteroids and finding asteroids that could hit Earth. And it's this neat project that conceivably Alana could be a part of in just a couple of years, which is interesting. But we saw 3D printers, we did art, there was crafts. She learned about all kinds of things. I'm sure that she would have gotten a little bit more out of it if she was a little older, but it's a great start, and it was $37, and $37 well spent to spend the whole day wandering through the park and seeing and learning and creating. So it's pretty cool.
Excellent. Well, as I said, I'll let you go. Maybe this week you can start to observe what your, these cognitive growths that are happening and so forth. So next week we can talk about some other examples. I'm sure you're right; they're great examples. But let's get some more examples this week of ways in which you're growing. She's growing, and maybe if you see anything where you see either you're glad you didn't encourage that, or you were unhappy and somebody else encouraged it. Let's kind of talk about the art of expanding, her neuronal connections in the right direction. Sounds good?
Thanks a lot, Michael.
You're welcome. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.